The Louisville Cardinals received their first commitment of the 2026 class.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this second Tuesday episode of the Locked On the Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my sixth year covering U of L, fourth year hosting this show, and I want to take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. Don't forget to leave a comment in the YouTube section below. As you all know, that's a great way to help the show continue to grow. It is much appreciated. But you might be asking yourself, Dalton, why are we having a second episode on Tuesday? Well, circumstances call for it. The Louisville basketball program has received their first commitment in the 2026 class. G League guard London Johnson will be joining Pat Kelsey's program. What does he bring to the team? What about the realistic expectations? What's next for Cardinals recruiting? We will discuss that and more coming up on today's show. But first, this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. It's pretty funny. I was recording the initial Tuesday show when I was about to wrap things up, and I saw the notification come across my phone that Louisville had gotten a commitment. And I tried to stay calm, but I understood with how crazy the Louisville fan base is regarding basketball, I was going to have a second Tuesday episode. And look, I am perfectly fine with that considering the circumstances. But this was a recruitment that it felt like Louisville was trying to keep under wraps for as long as they could. Now, I heard about London Johnson, as many did. I want to say it was either Thursday or Friday of last week. And less than a week later, he ends up committing. Now, London Johnson will likely have 2 years of eligibility remaining. He's a 21-year-old guard who was a member of the 2023 class originally. Now, he reclassified to the 2022 class and signed a 2-year deal with G League Ignite. Now, don't forget, at the time, that was extremely popular. You saw some of the top prospects like Jalen Green and Jonathan Kuminga go down that same road, and it worked out for them. So London Johnson has played the past 3 seasons in the G League, the first 2 for G League Ignite, and he split the season with the Maine Red Claws to start the season. They're a member of they're the G League affiliate. I'm sorry, let me clarify. They're the G League affiliate of the Boston Celtics and also the Canton Charge, or the Cleveland Charge. I think they were the Canton Charge. The Cleveland Charge, who, of course, is the G League affiliate of the Cleveland Cavaliers. So at the time when he signed the deal, there were suggested reports that hinted that London Johnson signed for 7 figures. Now, is that true? Not sure. But it was also rumored that that deal was larger than the one signed by Scoot Henderson, who, if you remember, is a former top 3 NBA draft pick. So I think that it's pretty helpful to kind of go through the timeline and explain how things got to where they were. Now, we are in that uncharted water at the moment. The precedent might have been set when, I think it's Thierry Darlin is how you pronounce his name, when he went to the G League, ended up going to Santa Clara, and just recently got ruled eligible for this upcoming season, like last month. So you're hoping that that precedent has been set, but truthfully, we are just scratching the surface of the impact that G League can play for college basketball. I think we have to start out with this. I hope that he is eligible, and I would imagine that with how calculated and meticulous the Louisville staff is, that if there was even a shred of a doubt that London Johnson would not be eligible, that Pat Kelsey and company probably wouldn't have pushed for his commitment. But with the precedent possibly being set last month, maybe they're saying, hey, look, it makes sense. He's a guy that can come in and play a key role for us. We believe in his skill set. And I don't care where we get the talent from, as long as we get the talent. And, of course, Pat Kelsey has been no stranger to the unconventional way of recruiting, right? I won't necessarily say that international recruiting is unconventional because it has become increasingly popular over the past decade or so, but I'm talking like non-traditional high school recruiting, right? Like the non-traditional recruiting. You've seen them go to the G League to recruit a couple of players. They offered Abdullah Ahmed last week. So maybe this becomes a trend that Louisville is just ahead of the curve on. But anyways, London Johnson, 21-year-old guard, former top 50 prospect, 6'3", 181 pounds. Looking at the stats, starting out his G League career with the Ignite, he was really solid. 10.5 points per game in 2022-2023 as a 19-year-old. And then he followed that up 10.6 points per game, 5.2 assists, and 2.1 rebounds per contest. Now, he ends up going to Maine and Cleveland last season, appeared in, 21 total games, started 3 of those, averaged 14.4 minutes per night, only averaged 3 points per game last season. The shooting percentages weren't all that great, and I don't know if that was because of an injury. I couldn't find anything when I looked it up, or if it was just because of the team that he was joining, or teams that he was joining, plural. Anyways, I would like to know why he had a significant drop-off in not only production, but playing time, because he went from playing upwards of 25 minutes a night in 2022, 2023, and 2023, 2024 to not playing that much last season. Maybe it's because he's playing on a better team. I don't think the G League Ignite won a ton of games when he was there. But anyway, looking at the skill set, what stands out immediately is that he is really solid prototypical size for a point guard. 6'3", 6'4". Seems like Pat Kelsey's MO is going out and getting larger players to fill the backcourt. And 6'3" is solid for a point guard. Now, can he play off ball? I believe so. We've seen some clips where he can play off ball. I'm interested to do more scouting and watch full games. Of course, watching G League games past G League games, it's kind of hard to find those in the archives. But I'm interested to do some more scouting. But preliminarily, what stands out right away is he has prototypical point guard size for the next level. From a skill set standpoint, does a really good job of attacking the paint, finishing through contact, effective, accelerating in the open court. But what's even more impressive is how he decelerates when he takes the ball to the basket, is able to stop on a dime, speed up and slow down. He plays to his own pace, doesn't allow other players to affect his tempo. And I think that that's something that will help him in the college game. He has a tight handle, crafty ball handler, is able to create space off the dribble, being able to create his own shot off the dribble. And something that when I started out in, I'll say quote unquote sports media, something that stood out to me when I was doing NBA draft scouting was a player's ability to create his own offense off the dribble. And London Johnson looks the part in that category, whether it's taking it to the basket and finishing in a multitude of different ways, or just being able to drive, stop on a dime, and create his own shot in the mid-range. There is a small sample size of perimeter shooting. Not the greatest perimeter shooter, but I thought he showed that he could be serviceable over the past couple of seasons. The footwork is there in the paint, and for an offense that thrives with getting into the lane and kicking out to open shooters, I can only imagine what Pat Kelsey saw, saying that, hey, look, this guy, maybe he's not a knockdown three-point shooter in the D1 ranks, but he's going to be able to be that catalyst for our offense and facilitate the basketball and distribute it to the point to where he finds those open shooters. And that's where you have to look for improvements. efficiency in scoring in his career in the G League, 42.8% from the field. That has to improve. He has to have better shot selection and ultimately has to become more efficient. Three-point shooting, 32.8%. This past season was his best three-point percentage of his career. It was at 34.4, but only on 1.5 attempts per game. So the sample size isn't there. If he's serviceable at the next level, I think that that's great. Limiting turnovers is another thing. Maybe it's because of the usage that he had with the G League Ignite, but if he's going to be the primary ball handler for the Cardinals or one of the primary ball handlers for the Cardinals in 2026, 2027, he has to do a better job of taking care of the basketball. Defensively, upside is there. Ability to jump passing lanes, 6'3", solid athleticism and verticality, can get up and block shots, can disrupt an opposing player's shot. But I think that there still is some room to grow in that category. But the skill set is one that kind of fits the MO of Pat Kelsey's recruiting. Larger guard that is unselfish with the basketball, can flourish in the open court, and can take the ball to the rim. But what does his role look like? What are realistic expectations? And what about this new phenomenon of G League recruiting? We'll answer all of those prospective questions when we come back. You're tuned into Locked On Louisville, covering your team every day. Let's be honest, Card Nation, most of us can't even name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth between 401ks, savings, and investments. It's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It's helped me organize my accounts, track my spending, and get a better handle on my investments without even having to touch a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com with the code LOCKEDONCollege for half off of your first year. And before we get into the next segment, let's tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets. If you win, that's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. And you can have so many different ways to play, whether you want to build parlays, you want to try player props, or if you even want to follow the live lines during games, you have that versatility. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Thank you all so much for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. We're continuing the discussion surrounding the newest Louisville men's basketball commitment, G League guard London Johnson. Of course, we are just scratching the surface, and we are relatively new with this phenomenon of G League recruiting. I think it started with the precedent being set last month with the NCAA's ruling to make Thierry Darlin eligible at Santa Clara, and then multiple programs offer Abdullah Ahmed from the Westchester Knicks, the Louisville Cardinals included in that mix, and now you see the newest commitment in this trend, and it comes from London Johnson. So I think I'll start out with saying this. I know it's unconventional recruiting the G League ranks, but don't let unconventional and I'll say maybe not uncomfortable. I think it's just something that people aren't used to. It might seem uncomfortable because you're not used to it. Like, hey, why are you recruiting the G League? And when I say uncomfortable, I mean like you are uncertain about what a player is going to do at your program. You're uncertain about how good said player is. Like, there's more uncertainty. Maybe uncomfortable isn't the term. Maybe it's uncertain, right? Because it's new. I will say this. The G League competition is leaps and bounds better than D1 college basketball. Because who's in the G League? Some former college basketball stars And some of the best international players in the world are playing in the G League. Like, how many former lottery picks are playing in the G League? How many players were all-American caliber, all-conference level guys that just couldn't, find their footing in the NBA because it's hard to do, and now they're playing in the G League. So don't shake your head at the G League just because you're not used to Louisville recruiting in the G League. The reality is that players are playing better competition and the coaching is more advanced. Like the sets, the offenses are more advanced. Like there's this fallacy out there that suggests like players in the NBA just don't play any defense. And I think that couldn't be any further from the truth. Like, yeah, there are clips where guys just give up on plays, but the reality of the situation is that offenses are more advanced than they ever have been in basketball history. So good defense oftentimes gets overshadowed by good offense. And if you follow the NBA closely, you know how intricate schemes and game plans and play calling can be, especially on offense. So I say all that to kind of set the table for this discussion as to what is his role going to look like. I think he's a possible starter. There is some uncertainty because of him taking a step back in production. I think he's got the skill set to be really good. The issue is that can you bank on that for 2026, 2027? That's where I'm at. I think the ceiling is starter. I think that the floor is higher because, well, he's 21 years old and, he's an older recruit. He's got 2 years of eligibility, so he's not a project by any means. He's played in the G League, so he's played that higher level of competition. I think that the floor is higher. I think that he is one of the first players off the bench. Now, it very well could depend on, well, what does Adrian Woolley do after this season? Does he have a good enough season to where he goes to the NBA draft? Or does he come back? Lord forbid he enters the transfer portal. I mean, it happens. You have to at least mention the possibility. But if he comes back to Louisville, I think it might change what London Johnson's role could be. Like, it's also like, okay, London Johnson's in the G League. He's eligible to go to the NBA draft. His stock isn't really all that high because I haven't heard of his name in draft circles or on NBA draft big boards at all. So if you're going to leave the G League, I would assume it's for a larger opportunity. Like, you're not going to college just to play 14 to 15 minutes per game. Or at least you wouldn't think that that's the case. If you do, then it's like, okay, are you just banking on more production in that limited amount? Like, you would imagine that he's coming to college for a larger role and more production. And I think that he's going to get both of those. The question is, what does recruiting look like? And more on that here in just a moment. I think he's a starting level guy. I understand that it's, once again, unconventional. So people are like, oh, well, Pat Kelsey whiffed on Talon Kenny. He's likely not going to get Deron Rippey Jr. or Dylan Mingo or any of these other top point guards. So he had to get creative and settle for a consolation prize. I'll tell you, London Johnson is one hell of a consolation prize if that's the way you're looking at this. So I think it's really going to depend, A, on Adrian Woolley, and B, on the depth that the Cardinals go with. I don't think that there's any way where Louisville doesn't go to the portal to bring in more guard play. I think if this was something that I had control over, the way that I would go about it is that I would just create competition. If Woolley comes back, if he doesn't, London Johnson will compete for a starting spot. We've seen the Louisville Cardinals possibly go, we haven't seen them play yet, but with their roster, it's likely that they're going to utilize 3-guard lineups. So by that alone, will they go to the portal to get elite level guard play? I think so. I think that's also because elite guard play is more available than elite big man play in the portal. So possible starter. I think that this is a floor raiser for the Cardinals. Still TBD. There is some risk involved, right? I mean, as there is with every player, he hasn't played college basketball ever. So what does the transition look like to that style of play? Is he going to be able to clean up the turnovers? Do we see the efficiency numbers with shooting percentages? Do they improve? How comfortable is he in this offense? Like there's a lot of factors that go into the mix, and I'm not going to sit here and say that right out of the gate he's going to be a lottery pick. I think that the upside is there for him to potentially be a first-round guy, although age might work against him, right? Teams go with more potential. But I have to see him play more, right? I have to see him play for Louisville before I make any type of big-time generalization or big-time take, if you will. So I like this addition. Even though it's unusual the way Louisville's going about it, I appreciate Pat Kelsey's commitment to bringing in talent by any means and bringing in players that he believes fit this system and fit this scheme. I think that London Johnson is going to be a rotational player in some capacity, whether that's off the bench or as a starter, still TBD. But another question as we move forward is, well, how does this affect Louisville's recruiting? What's next for Pat Kelsey's recruiting efforts? We'll attempt to answer that when we come back on this second Tuesday edition. You're tuned in to Locked On Louisville, covering your team every day. College football is about halfway through the season, or honestly, maybe over halfway through the season, but I still couldn't be any more excited because the Cards have never been more back after the victory over Miami. And if I can ask a favor from you all, get out to L&N Stadium this Saturday. The Cards are ranked once again. They're number 19 in the AP poll. And don't forget, this is one of those rare night games in conference play. So if you don't have anything else going on, even if you do, make some arrangements and get down to Cardinal Stadium on Saturday. Jeff Brom and the team deserve it, and no better way to get your tickets than using Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. The app makes it super, super simple. When I pulled up the app, I could see the exact view from my seat. I got to see all the zone deals, which allow you to pick the section, and Game Time picks the seats, and you save big time. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's the promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Throughout the week, we have 2 more episodes. We won't have a Wednesday show because we are doubling up on Tuesday, but we will be back for Thursday and Friday. We're going to preview Boston College. We're going to preview the upcoming exhibition game against Kansas and much more. So just an update on the scheduling. But what's next? Like, what does this mean for Louisville moving forward? As it relates to guard play, some have asked me about Deron Rippey Jr. And 2 things. I think Louisville heavily pursuing London Johnson and getting his commitment might be an indication of how Louisville feels about that recruitment. Number 2, would Deron Rippey want to join Louisville after they just got a commitment from London Johnson, who's very obviously not a project? He's going to play next season, and he's probably going to play a substantial amount of minutes. And the possibility of Adrian Woolley coming back. Like, yeah, you could play 3 guards, but London Johnson is a point guard. Deron Rippey Jr. is a point guard. Adrian Woolley is a combo guard, but can play the point. Like, is there a way that all 3 can coexist? I'm just not sure. I think that it's one of those things where if Louisville could have gotten seriously involved with Deron Rippey, maybe they don't heavily pursue London Johnson. That is just my intuition. Maybe I'm 100% completely wrong. I kind of hope that I am, because Rippey is an incredible prospect. There's also, like, looking at the guard play around the 2026 class up at the very top, like, there's just not many players you can go after at this point. So process of elimination, if you're going to bring in another non-transfer portal guard, it's going to have to be the international ranks. It's going to have to be going back to the G League, because there's a couple guys, Caleb Holt, Dylan Mingo, Brandon McCoy, Austin Gooseby, Caden House, Josiah Jervis, Miles Sadler. These are top 50 players, but Louisville either hasn't been linked to any of them, or I'm sorry, they haven't been linked to any individuals, or if they have, it hasn't been serious interest. So I don't think that it's going to be a situation where Louisville goes to the high school ranks unless it is a player in like that 50 to 100 range that they say, you know what? We think that he can be a piece for the future. But in terms of filling out your rotation for next year, if you bring back Woolley, you bring in London Johnson, I think you go to the portal to get an elite level guy, at least one, because you brought 4 of them in, and not to mention Kobe Rogers coming off the bench. So yeah, the roles might seem limited because there's only so many minutes to go around, but don't forget, you have Michael Brown Jr. already committed, and you brought in 3 top portal guards in the span of a week. So I don't doubt that Louisville's going to go back to the portal to bring in at least 1 high caliber guard, maybe 2, maybe even more than that. We'll see. Pat Kelsey's very committed to winning with elite level guard play, and I could not be any happier to see that MO. Of course, we're still watching what's going to happen with Josh Irving, one of the top big men in the 2026 class. It seems like right now it's like Louisville, A&M, and Kentucky. Very well could be a bluegrass battle. Louisville has shown the hesitancy to go above and beyond and win a bidding war for a high school prospect. So Kentucky, with their budget, will Louisville outbid for Josh Irving? TBD. We will see. But I think Louisville will turn to international recruiting a good amount. You saw them bring in 3 international guys this past cycle. I think that they go back to that. They go back down that avenue, whether it is for another guard, whether it is for big men, a wing, you name it. Also going to depend on who stays and who goes, but I would not be surprised if Louisville's backcourt next year, not talking about wings, I'm talking about specifically guards. You have London Johnson, Adrian Woolley, international guard, and 2 transfers. So that gives you a total of 5 like you have this year. I feel like that's a good mixture. Now that caliber of international guard and the caliber of those G League transfer portal players, that's to be determined. But this isn't going to prevent Louisville from going out and getting more guard play. Like, they have to go get more guards, and I think that they will. So we will, of course, monitor what Louisville does on the recruiting trail. The season technically doesn't start until November 3rd, but first exhibition game on Friday against a ranked Kansas team. We will break that down and preview it coming up later this week. Thanks for tuning into this second Tuesday episode of the show. We'll see you back here on Thursday. Go Cards.